I have stood on battlefields drenched in silence before the clash. I have watched men sharpen their blades with hope while their stomachs trembled with fear. I have walked through tents filled with strategy, yet emptied of discipline. And I have seen one truth play out again and again. How a man fights in war is how he behaves in peace. His coin is his clarity. His bank is his battlefield. You think your financial life is separate. That money is a tool, a ledger, a result of luck or misfortune. But I tell you this, your money moves in the exact formation as your thoughts. Every transaction is a tactic. Every delay is a weakness. Every purchase reveals whether you are at war or surrendering quietly. A general who fails to supply his army will lose before his sword ever leaves its sheath. So too will a man who earns but does not allocate, who desires more yet scatters what he has, who blames the world but never inspects the map of his own expenditures. Your bank account is not just numbers, it is terrain, a hostile desert or a fortified fortress, depending on whether you have claimed control or wandered blind through enemy territory. You do not need 1,000,000 soldiers to win. You need fewer leaks in the camp. You need to stop throwing coins at comfort and start commanding them toward position. You need to ask, with each expense, does this strengthen my army, or does it weaken my wall? When I prepare for war, I do not merely count arrows, I measure silence. I look for the unspoken patterns. You must do the same with your finances. Where do your coins go when no one is watching? What do you fund when you are tired, when you are emotional, when you feel defeated? If your answer is indulgence, then you are not just broke. You are being invaded, slowly, silently, from within. No enemy is stronger than the one you feed. You think budgeting is about sacrifice. It is not. It is about alignment. Forming your troops to match the terrain. Positioning your cavalry where the enemy cannot reach. If you hate the word budget, then you have already lost the battle. The enemy has disguised clarity as constraint, and you believed it. Let me tell you something you may not want to hear. Wealth is not about how much you earn. It is about how well you organize your battlefield. The poor general blames the arrows he was given. The wise one arranges them with precision. So arrange your coins with clarity. Defend your fortress. Build slowly, but deliberately. You do not need more money. You need better formation. Now ask yourself, what formation are your finances in right now? Are they scattered across desires or assembled around goals? Are you reactive, spending like a man dodging arrows, or proactive, moving funds like a general positioning troops? If your money retreats every month without your command, you are not broke. You are outflanked. And if you do not change formation soon, the war will not wait for you. So prepare, quietly, daily, intentionally. You don't win on the battlefield. You win in the camp, in the silence, in the way you allocate your rations before the storm ever arrives. This is how I think. This is how I move. This is how I win. So I ask again, what does your bank account say about your strategy? Because I can look at your finances and see exactly how you fight. When I stand before my troops, I do not ask how much they fear the enemy. I ask how well they have trained when the enemy was absent. That is the measure of victory. Not bravery in chaos, but discipline in stillness. In the same way, your money does not speak loudest in the moments of wealth. It speaks when no one is looking, when you are alone, when the choice is subtle. Victory begins with unseen habits. Look closely at the soldier who sharpens his blade at dawn. He is not reacting to war, he is preparing for it. Likewise, the one who reviews his finances weekly, who rewrites his strategy monthly, who revisits his goals not because he is rich, but because he is focused. That is the one who will build wealth without fanfare. You do not rise by chance. You rise by formation. Every battle I've ever won started with something small, a shift in how I stationed the cavalry, how I rationed the grain, how I chose the terrain. And every fortune lost began with something small too. A single indulgence, a delayed decision, a refusal to look at the books, because the truth might hurt. But the truth is not your enemy. Avoiding it is. Do not be seduced by comfort. It is the sharpest blade of your adversary. Comfort makes men spend before they plan. It makes them choose appearances over assets. They want the horse before they know how to ride. They buy the banquet before they've planted the field. I watch these men, and I do not call them fools. I call them untrained. Not in war, but in themselves. You think you need motivation. You do not. You need inspection. You need to open the ledger and look at it like a battlefield map. Where are you leaking? Where are you fortified? Where is the gap in the wall? A man who avoids his finances is like a general who never walks the perimeter. One breach, and the whole camp falls. Not because of strength, but because of blindness. If you earn a wage and still live in chaos, it is not the wage. It is the general. You are not lazy. You are not cursed. You are not unlucky. But you are untrained. And you must fix this not by emotion, but by structure. Structure is the quiet killer of fear. When your coins are assigned, your temptations shrink. When your reserves are marked, your panic lessens. When your goals are mapped, your enemy loses surprise. I always kept reserves. Even in victory, I never spent all. I saved men, I saved arrows, I saved silence. Because war changes, fortunes turn. And when they do, the one who has reserves is the one who will outlast. Apply this. Build reserves, not for display, but for endurance. It is not the size of your income, it is the sharpness of your arrangement. So before you beg the world for more, ask yourself, have you even mastered what you have? Have you trained your coins? Or do they wander, undisciplined, reflecting your own confusion? Because your bank account is not a result, it is a mirror, a reflection of your habits, your fears, your control, or your lack of it. If I were to see your account today, I would not ask how much is in it. I would ask how it got there. That tells me more than the balance. The one who grows steadily, quietly, patiently. That is the one building an empire. Not with noise, not with debt, but with structure, silence, and vision. The battlefield of money is not Wall Street. It is your living room, your grocery list, your impulses, your excuses. So learn to lead there. Lead your finances like you would lead soldiers, with vision, with clarity, with respect for the future. Because if you cannot lead your money, how will you lead your life? This is what I know. This is what I see in every coin. Not value, but strategy. I once walked through a camp on the eve of war. Soldiers laughed, drank, scattered their rations like there would be no tomorrow. Maybe for them, there wouldn't be. But I saw the truth. They had already lost. Not to the enemy, but to themselves. They mistook temporary pleasure for power. They confused indulgence with strength. And that mistake is the same I see in men today. They say, I work hard, I deserve this. And they buy without thought. They consume to feel alive. They trade tomorrow's position for today's escape. But that is not celebration. That is surrender. Celebration without victory is a lie. A soldier does not feast before the battle. A strategist does not burn coin for comfort. He builds. He delays gratification, not because he hates pleasure, but because he knows its place. He is not ruled by appetite. He is ruled by vision. If you buy something to look wealthy, you are poor in formation. If you fear missing out more than missing your goal, you have already lost your command. You think you lack resources, but what you truly lack is resistance. Resistance to impulse. Resistance to noise. Resistance to what the world tells you to desire. I walk through cities now, and I see bright signs screaming, "Buy." Everywhere. A battlefield of distraction. The enemy no longer wears armor. It wears marketing. It speaks sweetly. It whispers, "You deserve this." And if you do not have a plan, you will believe it. Understand, your money will always move. The question is, who is commanding it? If you are not assigning every coin, every week, every month, then someone else is. That is the harsh reality of this age. Subscriptions you forgot, loans you justified, luxuries you earned. They are all enemy troops inside your gates, and they do not conquer with swords, they conquer with comfort. Now let me offer you a new frame. Do not think of budgeting as cutting. Think of it as sharpening. Sharpening your direction. Sharpening your awareness. Sharpening your defense against manipulation. When I studied my opponents, I never attacked at random. I learned their patterns. I watched their supply lines. I knew where they were strong and where they were exposed. Do this with your spending. Study yourself. What do you tend to waste on when you're tired? What purchases creep in when you're emotional? What lies do you tell yourself? A general who does not study his own camp is preparing for collapse. You must know your enemy, but first, you must know yourself. And self-awareness with money is rare. Most people do not look at their statements. Not really. They scan, they sigh, they hide. But a warrior confronts. Look at your last 30 days. Not to shame yourself, but to command yourself. Where are the leaks? Where did emotions speak louder than vision? Patch those first. Then build defense. Automate your savings like you automate your weapons. Automate your investments like you reinforce your walls. Remove the need for willpower. Use systems. Because in war, we do not rely on motivation. We rely on formation. If you wait until you're inspired to be disciplined, you've already ceded ground. And when you build a system strong enough, even when you are tired, the system holds you up. That is the strategy I lived by. That is the principle you must adopt. Win quietly. Win by design. Win not when you feel like it, but because you structured your life to win even when you didn't. Your bank account is not a measure of your worth, but it is a reflection of your warfare. And most people are losing, not because they are weak, but because they never took command. You must be different. You must become your own general. There is a silence before every ambush, a quiet moment where time slows and the battlefield waits. That is when victory is decided, not by brute strength, but by preparation. By whether you were aware, whether you read the signals, whether you left yourself exposed. Your financial life has these ambushes too. A car breaks down, a job disappears, a family member calls in crisis, and in that moment, most people fall, not because the moment was too big, but because they never built reserves. They lived with no margin. They walked the cliff's edge with no rope. This is not a judgment. This is a warning. You must expect the ambush. You must anticipate it, plan for it, train your army to respond before it even arrives. Your emergency fund is not a suggestion. It is a shield. I kept reserves buried in hills, scattered across provinces, not because I was paranoid, but because I knew one strike could drain everything if I was not prepared. And when that day came, as it always does, I did not panic. I deployed. You must build your finances in layers, not in noise, not in symbols, not in pretending to be rich, but in truly being prepared. First, protection. Your reserve fund, your fortress of last defense, enough for 6 months, bare and brutal. Second, order. Systems that move your money where it must go before you can sabotage yourself. Automatic contributions, named accounts, guardrails. Third, growth. Strategic investments. Not just chasing returns, but allocating capital to battlefields where you can win over time, consistently, quietly. Most people reverse this order. They start with growth, dreaming of gains, skipping defense, avoiding systems. They rush into the battle for more without securing what they already have. This is not ambition. This is recklessness. You do not build an empire on chaos. You build it on control, on structure that remains when emotion fades, on habits that survive the storm, on choices that protect you from your weaker self. You think the rich are lucky. You think they had a head start. Sometimes, yes. But more often, they had a better formation, a plan that didn't rely on today, a strategy that included failure, downturn, betrayal. They anticipated, while others reacted. And you can do the same. Starting now, start by naming every dollar, even if you earn little, because a dollar with a name becomes a soldier with a purpose. Start by choosing your essentials, truly choosing. Most people confuse convenience with necessity. You must learn the difference. Start by inspecting your subscriptions, your indulgences, your excuses. Audit your battlefield. You are not at war with money. You are at war with disorganization. If you organize, you will win. If you wait until disaster, you will drown. I know this path. I have walked it. I have seen men of power fall, not from defeat, but from disorder. And I have seen quiet men rise, with no applause, no praise, just discipline, just clarity, just the refusal to move blindly ever again. You can become that man. Not tomorrow, not when things are better, but now, with what you already have. Because control is not something you buy. It is something you command. I have seen soldiers freeze not because the enemy was strong, but because they had never planned for resistance. They hoped every march would be smooth, every road open, every fight short. Hope is not a strategy. It is not a financial plan, and it will not protect you when the ground shifts. What will protect you is predictability. When I prepared my troops, I trained them to expect hardship, to drill responses until they became reflex. That same discipline must exist in your financial life. If your plan only works when everything goes well, then you do not have a plan. You have a fantasy. Real strength is measured in how you behave under pressure. When income drops, when a deal falls through, when markets contract, do you collapse with it, or does your structure hold? That structure is what you must build. It begins with clarity, not just what you earn, but what you need. Truly need. Cut through the fog. See what feeds your mission and what feeds your ego. Then comes consistency. The soldier who trains daily will outlast the one who trains hard once a month. The same is true with money. Small contributions, regular reviews, relentless awareness. These win the long war. And finally, your ability to delay. This is your strategic weapon. Delaying gratification is not punishment. It is positioning. When I hold back a division in battle, it is not because I fear to strike. It is because I know that patience can kill faster than chaos. The same applies to money. The man who can wait, who can hold cash, who can deny himself the impulse of the crowd, that man will own the field when others have exhausted themselves. You see it in markets, in real estate, in trends. The masses rush in with noise. The strategist watches, waits, positions, then strikes, once, decisively. That is your aim. To move with intention. Every dollar must move because you commanded it. Not because you were seduced, not because you were pressured, not because you were tired. If you don't understand why you spent it, you're not in control. And if you are not in control, you are at war with your own camp. You do not need 1,000 pages of financial theory. You need awareness. Look at the man who eats more than he needs. He is not bad. He is unaware. Look at the one who scrolls endlessly. She is not weak. She is untrained. Look at the person who earns well but ends each month at 0. They are not cursed. They are just unstrategic. And this can be changed. You can change it. Not by doing more, but by doing less, better. Remove the noise. Reduce the options. Decide in advance. Spend like a general deploys troops, with caution, with purpose, with backup. This mindset will not just protect your money, it will sharpen your identity. Because when you learn to lead your finances, you begin to lead your mind. The same clarity, the same structure, the same resistance to impulse, it spreads. You eat better, you rest sharper, you speak with less noise. Your life becomes a camp of discipline. And from that camp you win, not with flash, but with force. So the next time you check your bank account, don't just look at the number. Look at the formation. Does it look like chaos or command? Because no one will fight your financial war for you. The world will cheer your spending, but it will not catch you when you fall. That is your duty, to lead. I have faced storms that scattered armies, betrayals that split alliances, and winters that starved the strongest horses. In each of those moments, it was not strength that saved us. It was foresight. It was how we positioned before the storm, how we stocked the grain, how we held our formation when others broke. Your financial life will face storms too, unexpected ones, prolonged ones, and how you endure them will come down to one thing: how well you prepared when skies were clear. Preparation is not glamorous. It is not loud. It does not post itself for applause. It is quiet, methodical, often boring. But that is what makes it powerful. A well-prepared man does not fear scarcity because he already trained in simplicity. He knows the taste of restraint. He knows how to wait without weakening. Ask yourself this: if your income stopped tomorrow, how long could you stand? That answer is your current formation. It is not good or bad. It is simply your truth. And from truth, we build strategy. So, build with honesty. You do not need shame. You need structure. If your expenses are built on proving your status, then your identity is weak. If your savings are an afterthought, then your future is unguarded. If you earn more than you did last year, but still live in chaos, then chaos is not in your income. It is in your command. And this must change. Start by creating distance between income and spending. Let money sit. Let it cool. If it burns a hole in your pocket, then the fire is not in the money. It is in your mind. Then, assign every coin a mission. Not just savings, but emergency defense, investment soldiers, supply chain. Turn your money into a battlefield language. Make it tactical. Make it accountable. When your money has no mission, it will find chaos. Just like soldiers with no orders start fights among themselves, dollars without a destination create disorder. But when you assign every resource, even the smallest, you begin to build discipline at scale. You begin to see the true nature of wealth, not freedom to buy everything, but freedom from needing anything you don't command. The richest general is not the one with the biggest army. It is the one who can retreat and still remain intact, who can lose a battle and still regroup, who can survive a siege and emerge stronger. This is the goal of financial formation, not perfection, but resilience. And resilience comes from margin, the space between your income and your costs, between your needs and your wants, between your desires and your discipline. Most people live with no margin. One emergency away from collapse, one mood swing away from debt, one temptation away from regret. You must widen that space, not just by earning more, but by wanting less, by choosing less, by seeing clarity as strength, not limitation. When you reach that place where you could earn half and still endure, still save, still advance, then you are dangerous. Then you are a general. Then you are free. And in that silence, in that margin, you gain something far more powerful than riches. You gain leverage. Leverage to say no. Leverage to wait. Leverage to strike only when the moment favors you, not when pressure forces your hand. This is how I survived wars. This is how you survive capitalism. By not chasing every opportunity, but by choosing only the ones aligned with your map. And when you move like thunder, slow, precise, irreversible. Because wealth is not speed, it is position. I have seen what happens when men chase gold without a map. They run fast, but fall early. They celebrate noise, but forget direction. They taste the thrill of conquest, then choke on the burden of maintenance. Because what you build without discipline will collapse under its own weight. The same is true for your finances. If you earn without structure, you will lose without warning. I do not fear poverty as much as I fear misalignment. Poverty can be endured with honor, but misalignment, that is betrayal from within. That is building your life in a direction you do not believe in, simply because others told you it was success. Many men have money, but no strategy. They buy what others admire, but they own nothing of themselves. They wear armor forged by another's praise, not their own clarity. And one day, the applause stops, and they're exposed. Let me offer you a different code. Define your success in terms of formation, not comparison. A soldier does not ask how many men his neighbor commands. He asks, are mine in position? Are mine loyal? Are mine prepared? So ask, are your finances built on your values or someone else's? If your spending reflects insecurity, it is not power, it is panic. If your investments reflect noise, not research, they are not growth, they are gambling. And if your goals are borrowed, you will burn out chasing a life that never felt like yours. Clarity is your only compass. Sit alone, strip away the noise, ask, what do I truly want my money to do? Not for image, not for applause, but for mission. Do you want freedom of time? Then every dollar spent should either buy time or move you closer to buying time. Do you want location independence? Then your strategy must align with mobility, not debt traps. Do you want to care for your family under any storm? Then every month should contribute to that shelter, not to temporary comfort. When your financial plan mirrors your real mission, discipline becomes easy. You stop asking, can I afford this? And start asking, does this fortify my objective? That is the mindset of a commander, a man who does not just protect his castle, but expands it with precision. Now understand, you will still be tempted. You will still face moments of weakness. But the difference is, you will not face them unarmed. You will have formation. You will have automatic transfers that move your soldiers before emotion gets involved. You will have visible goals that remind you why you endure. You will have fallback plans for every emergency, not because you expect to fail, but because you intend to survive anything. And you will have standards. A soldier who trains in mud does not panic when the storm comes. Likewise, a man who lives beneath his means will not break when life demands more. There is a quiet power in restraint. A man who can walk past temptation and feel nothing, that man is dangerous. Because he cannot be manipulated. He cannot be sold. He cannot be moved by noise. And that man always wins, not in public, but in private. In the morning routines, in the journal entries, in the weekly reviews no one else sees. That is where wealth is built. Not on stages, not in flashes, but in silence. There is a myth that wealth must be loud, that victory must be seen, that success must echo through rooms filled with others' approval. But in war and in money, the strongest forces move unseen. The most powerful shifts happen in silence, and the most disciplined men rarely need to announce anything at all. They just win, quietly, over time, without fanfare. I did not wear gold in battle. I wore dust. I did not speak often. I observed. I let my preparation speak for me. And when the enemy fell, they did not understand why. You must live the same way with your finances. Let your habits speak. Let your formations speak. Let your restraint speak louder than any boast. If someone looks at your life and says, "He doesn't seem rich," let that be your shield. Because the richest man is often the one no one sees coming. The one building his fortress underground. The one sharpening his blade in solitude. Let others chase symbols. You build systems. Let others broadcast their gains. You protect your ground because what you protect, you keep. And what you keep compounds. Slowly, quietly, relentlessly. This is the long war. And in the long war, you don't need to be first. You need to be last. Still standing. Still solvent. Still clear. The man who wins the financial game is not the one who flashes at 30 and burns out at 40. It is the one who ignored the crowd and built something unshakable, invisible, indestructible. You are not here to impress. You are here to endure, to create optionality, to say no when others are forced to say yes, to buy back your time, to walk away from what no longer serves your mission. And you can only do that when your money is trained, positioned, loyal. This is not about minimalism. This is about militarism, financial militarism, where every asset is a soldier. Every plan is a campaign. Every month is a war game. Every review, a debrief. You are not managing money. You are commanding it. You are not saving. You are reinforcing. You are not investing. You are expanding territory. You are not budgeting. You are drawing battle lines. And every dollar you keep, every purchase you reject, every emergency you withstand without chaos, these are your victories. Small, silent, stacked, until one day you wake up and realize you do not owe anyone. You do not fear the storm. You do not panic when prices rise. You do not chase, because you have built something no one can take. This is the final formation, and it starts with what you choose today. So do not look at your bank account with shame. Look at it with clarity. It is not your prison. It is your battlefield. And the moment you lead it, it becomes your empire.